This is Jets FM on EOFN as the Jets do what they know how to do best, and that's lose. You think one of these weeks we're going to come on the air and say the Jets win?
It's feasible. I don't think we're going to be saying that next week either.
No, not next week.
But
but we actually have a shot at the Patriots, man. If you could believe it, if they could just play like this, the way they've been playing the last 2 weeks, we could beat them.
We could, although you know as well as I do, every time we play, let me say not every time, but the larger propensity of times we play the Patriots, it does not go particularly well.
All right, Jets lose again, and this was a tough one because the Jets, they get pretty much everybody back on offense besides Crowder, and I think I still felt that, okay, I don't know if there's a big difference of Crowder praise. Maybe there's a little difference, but I don't think that was the main reason the Jets lost was not having Crowder on offense. The fact that they had Mims, Perryman, and Becton and Darnold was huge. It gave us the opportunity early in the first half to see, and it worked, to see what this offense might look like. And everything kind of went well in the first half. Things didn't go well after that, but it is interesting how the team does play better when they get their players back. Unfortunately, they're not a deep team. So when a team that's in a rebuild mode loses key players and they don't have any depth, then you get what we've seen for most of the first 6 or 7 games. But boom, they get healthy and they play a lot better. And I also have to applaud the defense. The defense did a fantastic job keeping the Jets in it. It's just that Sam Darnold and the offense couldn't figure out a way to help out in the second half.
Well, the downturn started towards the end of the first half.
Yes, it did.
By Darnold.
Good point. I like that point. And on that segue, let's listen to clip 1.
I fold like a cheap hooker who got hit in the stomach by a fat guy with sores on his face.
And that is right for Sam Darnold, baby, because Sam Darnold, and we talked about this before, Jan, how he folds as soon as he makes his first mistake. It's happened a lot more recently. And it was amazing, the difference. How good he looked until the interception and how bad he looked after the interception. I don't want to hear anything about we have to do better about, second half adjustments. We got to do this better and that better. Sam, you have to do better when you face adversity. Because you've been able to face adversity before, but there's something going on in his head right now that as soon as he faces a little adversity, man, does he, as Joey said, and we'll play it again.
I fold like a cheap hooker who got hit in the stomach by a fat guy with sores on his face.
Gazinga!
Joey Tribbiani says thank you for playing that clip, so I'm sure the Friends fans will be very happy. Look, it's hard to argue the point you're making. I do think second half adjustments do play a part in it.
Yeah, sure.
That's also been a very age-old story with his team.
Not this year though, because this year the second half actually
they
played a lot better than the first half.
In the first half to do right. So I do think that's been a problem. 4 yards in the second half. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Pathetic.
That's embarrassing.
And I'm going to give you. How about this? I'm going to break this out for you, man, because I know everybody's already. I've heard people, they want to protect Darnold, the fans, and Darnold, he needs to have better offensive line, and he needs to this and that, and okay, really? Well, let me get this very interesting stat from Pro Football Focus I found this morning. Quarterback Sam Darnold led New York to the only passing offense to not generate positive EPA, which is expected points added. That's a football stat that seeks to measure the value of individual plays in terms of points. Okay, so Darnold led New York to the only passing offense to not generate positive EPA per pass play when kept clean for the week so far, meaning there's games, of course, tonight. And they were nowhere close to being positive. And here's the key. When he was free from pressure, Darnold went 7 for 18 for 59 yards and 2 interceptions. That'll likely lead to the worst clean pocket passing grade in a single game this year. End of story.
Or we can quit. We can end the show now.
See that so anybody out there that wants to, and nobody's telling you the offensive line played great, but don't be giving me coaches and offensive lines with Darnold. That right there tells the story. And matter of fact, we even saw it in that first play when things were going well. Not the first drive, I think. Yeah, the first drive. I didn't see the big picture, and of course, great job as always by the network TV people when Mims. It appeared on that third down play at the 7 when Darnold scrambled. First of all, it appeared that Darnold should have ran for the first down. Second, it was like he was like waiting, and then he throws the ball to Mims, who it looked like was open by like 5 yards, and for whatever reason, Darnold waited and then threw it late and gave the DB a time to go up and knock the ball away. I would have loved to have seen a more bigger view from the network to show us exactly where the DB was, because it did certainly look like Mims was wide open.
If you get the all 24 view, that'll probably show it because they have the higher angle and you'll be able to see it. Look, nobody's saying that Darnold played well. I don't think by any stretch of the imagination. He played well enough in the first half.
He played really good in the first half, I thought.
And as you mentioned, things went off the rails thereafter, and they never could seem to get it back. And the defense played well enough. Look, Buffalo, they kept him out of the end zone. Buffalo had 8 field goal opportunities, which is just insane, right? They were still in the game because Boyd missed 2 of those field goals, though he hit 6 of them. And at the end, they had a shot if Darnold could have found a way to drive him down the field,
we all knew that
wasn't going to happen. And then, look, they lost Perriman at the end of the game. And he's being evaluated for concussion. You know what? I'm going to argue with you on that. I saw the hit. First of all, I don't think you call. Look, you want to argue the hit was high? No arguments. But the flag for a vulnerable or defenseless receiver. Well, if the guy's going to make the catch and the cornerback or safety is trying to separate him from the ball, he is going to be defenseless because he's focusing on catching the ball.
That's the rule.
Not necessarily taking the hit.
The rule.
But
you can argue the rule. Yeah, I'm not going to. I'm going to sit there and tell you that I'm a defensive guy. I don't like those rules, so I'm just telling you. I know the defensive back is doing his job because it worked.
That's what he's doing.
He knocked the ball out.
Separate the ball.
Yeah,
from the receiver.
He did what he was supposed to do.
I don't think he's aiming. I don't think he was aiming for his head either. Well, I don't think he went head on. Did him, and that I think contact was.
You
to
didn't
the head,
see him upset,
but
when
not
he was
by
walking
helmet
off the field.
to helmet.
I think he knew what he did. Well, we'll find out. We'll see what the league does. I don't know if they're going to do anything, so we'll see. It's up to the day. The league will have it for 24 hours.
John Bostic isn't getting any. Look, if John Bostic is getting absolutely nothing for that brutal hit on Andy Dalton, and if the defensive back from Buffalo gets fined, I highly disagree.
Yeah, I'd be surprised
with the equation between the two.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if Bostic. I mean, he
got nothing. Nothing. He's getting nothing supposedly. At least according to guys this morning, is what Adam Schefter reported.
Yeah, Mike McCarthy was pretty upset about it.
Well, McCarthy's pretty upset because the team around Dalton didn't really rally and kind of defend their teammate.
You know, I was having fun on Twitter with some of these Jet fans earlier this week about McCarthy. When the news came out about the Cowboys players, the
mutiny, not wanting him around.
Yeah. So I was pointing out, old Jet fans that wanted Mike McCarthy over Adam Gase. Then we're looking at you now because you're so smart. You know what a great coach is like. You didn't want Gase, you wanted McCarthy. So then I was getting people going, we never wanted McCarthy. No, I didn't want McCarthy. So look, sure, maybe there's 25% fans out there that didn't want McCarthy. I get it. That's true. But when there was the choice of McCarthy and Gase, 90% of you guys wanted McCarthy. It's a fact. Fact. And the guy is a freaking loser. So, look, both coaches are going to get fired anyway. But the point is that you keep screaming about Gase like you know everything. And the people who were screaming for Gase that think like you know everything, look yourself in the mirror when you realize that you were the ones who thought that Mike McCarthy could be the answer. So don't act like you're so smart about whether Adam Gase deserves to be here or not. But yeah, that's an uglier situation. Imagine if the Cowboys and the Jets were playing right now.
In full disclosure, I didn't want either, if you remember correctly. Both teams are 3-7 in their last 10. And look, things are bad in New York, and I think you and I both wholeheartedly admit when things are bad in New York, but we're nowhere near the level of bad that's going on in Dallas right now.
Yeah, there's a major. I mean, he might not make it to next week. That's how bad things are going.
Not after what we saw. Look, granted, they're going to be on their third quarterback now, which doesn't help.
Mm-hmm.
But that team,
sounds familiar.
The problem is that team has quit on him. The one thing you can say about the Jets, that especially last year as well, they haven't quit on Gase.
Nope.
They're not playing well, but they're playing hard,
yes.
right? And granted, just because you're playing hard doesn't mean you're going to play well. That's a
yeah, we've seen
and
that.
Everything else and scheme and everything else. But the one thing you can say is they have not thrown in the towel and basically just shown up and not given an effort, which is commendable for the fact that if you're going to, even if you don't like Gase, and I particularly don't, the fact that he's gotten the team to A, play well the second half last year, and B, not quit this year, despite going 0-6 is a positive.
Yeah, and contrary to Boomer Esiason, who has really sounded like an idiot the last couple of weeks. Last week, he talks about how, well, I was talking to, some of the people and coaches and the Jets, and I'm not going to name names, but yeah, I mean there's a little. I think they're all at the point of the season where they're trying to figure out where their next job's going to be. And then he starts talking about he said it last week and he's saying it again this week. He's trying to hammer it home about the fact that Joe Douglas turned the job down 3 times and really doesn't want to be here. And so he's back on this. Oh, well, because he turned the job down 3 times, it was like he was forced to take the job. So he took the job. He really doesn't want to be here. The coaches don't want to be here. I mean, Boomer Esiason should, I had a little bit more respect than I thought that I had for him to actually say garbage nonsense like that. Because this, contrary to what you might say what you want about Greg Williams and the crazy things he does and says, but this is if you take a look at the resumes of this coaching staff, of the primary coaches, and you say, all right, let's take Gase out of the picture. Everybody else, this is a good coaching staff. Say what you want. You put together a good coaching staff. So all this, and then you just said it, they play hard for him. So it's a good coaching staff that's playing hard for him. And yet Boomer is trying to tell you that they're all looking for different jobs and Joe Douglas doesn't want to be here. And you got some idiot fans now over the last few days too, the last week, talking about how Joe Douglas isn't the answer either. And finally, we got to see Mims and P. Ryan when they're healthy. We know what Becton has done when he's healthy. We should be getting a look at the Florida defensive lineman real soon. Maybe we've got the punter. Davis is still, we knew he was going to be a long-term guy. A walk-on, so he's going to take time. But so far, after what we saw yesterday with the rookies, 3 rookies, you're going to tell me that just because Robbie Anderson didn't want to play for the Jets anymore, that's Joe Douglas's fault, and that's the whole reason why he's the part of the problem too?
Well, so you know that I've been very much saying the jury's still out on Douglas. I've also said that I haven't been enamored with what he's done in free agency. I wasn't enamored even after he took over completely. I understand the draft is here, and granted, jury's still out on a whole lot of guys. We know we seem to have from Becton. You and I talked for the last several weeks that we needed to see P-Ron get the ball more so you can kind of get a sense what's there. Mims not staying on the field. Look, we've had a very bad history of drafting wide receivers in the second round, and the fact that he wasn't on the field kind of added to that narrative to a certain extent. And look, I still don't think that Douglas did a particularly great job in terms of handling the Jamal Adams situation, the Bell situation. I don't take him to task for it because I think Bell just got frustrated and wanted out, and he wasn't a part of bringing him on board.
But what did you want him to do with Adams?
Talk to him.
How do you know he didn't? This goes back to what we said before. You don't know what happened.
But again, you're always going to make suppositions and calls based upon what we know.
Okay.
And we think we know. If we never do, then
then?
Honestly, then there's no point in having a conversation at all on anything
because
we never will get full disclosure.
What do we know? That Jamal Adams went on Twitter and blasted the Jets. That's what we know for a fact. and wanted out. And he made life impossible for the Jets and forced Joe Douglas to trade. That's what we know. So maybe you're right that Joe Douglas didn't communicate with him well, but the fact, and we don't know, but the fact that what we do know makes Jamal Adams looks bad, to me, that's a break even at the worst for Joe Douglas after the way after the way Jamal Adams reacted. I just think but you even said it. Jury's still out. I have no problem with that. I have absolutely no problem with anybody that wants to say Douglas, jury's still out. But these bozos talking about Joe Douglas like, oh, he's doing this wrong and he's part of the problem and I don't like what I see. Come on, it's just ridiculous. The guy is about building the team through the draft. He's had one draft. He's accumulating draft picks. We don't have our quarterback yet, obviously, so he's going to pick that guy next year. Got to give him a couple of years, and that's why I reference, Becton and Mims and Perine, because that was the game where they all played, and I think if you just take everything else out, I'm optimistic about the three of them, aren't you?
Yeah, so let me touch on it. So remember, 3 years ago was suck for Sam, if you remember correctly.
Oh yeah,
everybody
absolutely.
was all that Sam Darnold is our future, right?
Yep.
So I think we all have to tamp the brakes a little bit on despite how good we all think Trevor Lawrence is going to be, that Trevor Lawrence is going to be the panacea and carry us to the promised land.
Because he might decide I'm going to come back from my senior year anyway.
Correct. Or whoever we draft may
not
be the guy also, which would be a major issue. But yeah. Look, I think we all knew what we had at Becton. I think the questionable part that I told you is I don't think he should have played the game with his shoulder. You said it was a pain threshold. I said it was more injury than pain. We have a disagreement, but I do think we all know what we see out of Becton. With Mims, the problem was he didn't get on the field. He wasn't able to get on the field. So we had no basis of comparison because we had no preseason games to see what he could or could not do. It was all speculation. With Perine, look, 4th round, You got rid of Bell. You have Gore. You and I both know that Gore is not any part of the future on this team. So you need to see what the guy who might have a future role can do when you give him more carries, right?
And he looked good yesterday.
A bit more, right? Yeah. He did, especially in the first half. They gave him a bit more. They use him in the passing game. You can see snippets of what he can do. Clearly, what you need to do over the next 10 games is start shifting that play calling more towards his side and away from Gore to really see, can he be a bell cow back or can he be a 1B type back that could pair with somebody else as part of a platoon if necessary.
And get Johnson in too. I want to see Johnson get about 5-6 touches a game.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of, to me, the bigger key. Look, I think we still don't know what Davis is going to be. Hall's been injured. Look, you know what Bradley Mann can do? I don't think Boyer's special teams have been great this year in any stretch of the imagination. And part of that maybe Mann needs to do a better job of hang time on his kicks and not kicking line drives. And that's something he's going to need to work on. There are aspects that are relatively positive, but when you take it in the grand scheme of things, going 0-6 so far and what we saw in the second half kind of adds to the ugliness.
All right, let's quickly go through this because early in the game, everything looked good. I told you about the part where I thought Darnold really screwed up, which was that pass to Mims. And it's interesting because right after that, and I record 5 games, so I always, of course, lead with the Jets. Then as soon as that was over, I went, all right, that's my 15 minutes. I'm going to go to the other 15 minutes of the other games I went to. So I went to 3 other games. Green Bay goes down the field, Aaron Rodgers, and he scored a touchdown. I went to New Orleans, Carolina. New Orleans gets the ball, goes down the field, scores a touchdown with Drew Brees. Then I go to Pittsburgh, get the ball, go down the field, score a touchdown with Ben Roethlisberger. And I'm going, you see? This is the difference between the Jets quarterback situation and these teams. We go down the field, we have a tremendous drive, and what happens? We kick a field goal. And the other team score touchdowns because they have quarterbacks that know how to get the ball in the end zone. And we have a quarterback that has a guy wide open, can't pull the trigger for whatever reason, decides, nah, I'm not going to run for the first down, and then throws the ball late because he choked. Because that's what Sam Darnold has been doing so far, and he's not getting any better no matter what Dole Laggins or any of these other Jet coaches say about Sam Darnold during the week that I'm getting sick of. I'm getting sick and tired of all the press clippings and all the crap, all the good, kind stuff that everybody's saying about Sam Darnold when the kid, obviously, statistically speaking, as we just mentioned in the second half, played like garbage.
So a couple of things. So the three names you mentioned, what's the connecting factor amongst all three names?
I don't know, Hall of Fame?
That's one. Veteran.
Sure.
Hall of Fame.
But you
Hall
get
of
my
Fame.
point.
So I understand. No, I get your point, but I'm saying it's interesting that the teams you gave are all three with Hall of Fame quarterbacks who are elite veteran quarterbacks. I do think that maybe, look, the Jet coaching staff are not going to throw Darnold under the bus. There's no benefit of doing so.
But don't you think they need to be a little bit more tough on him?
Look, I think they may be doing it behind the scenes, and they may recognize that he needs more of a pumping up as opposed to a kick in the rear end, right? There's been enough kicking in the rear end, what they've seen in the media, that have literally taken him to task for everything that's going on with this team right now. And all the columns about they just need to draft Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is the answer. Even Darnold last week admitted he's seen it, right? So it's clearly known in the building that everybody externally doesn't view Darnold as the future of this team. And you piling on as the coaching staff isn't going to do him or the team any good. So you're better off taking an alternate tack and seeing if maybe bolstering him, maybe going a softer approach might be beneficial. Look, if he doesn't play well, he may end up getting benched for all we know anyway. But they probably won't because, look, you can argue which does more to hurt his value, playing him or benching him.
Well, at this point, they got to keep getting him to play better because
you have no trade value right now. And honestly, if you're going to trade him, you're not trading him.
Yeah,
at the
he's not
deadline
getting
anyway.
traded before the deadline. Forget that is just ridiculous. That's not happening.
Right.
Yeah, if he's going to get traded, it's going to be in the offseason when the Jets know who their quarterback is going to be.
Correct.
Yeah. Yep. So I don't know what people are thinking. All right. So also, what would a Jets game be without a personal foul? And that came from Quinnen Williams once again. And it's always poor timing when it happens. But Quinnen Williams actually had a pretty good game.
He played well. I thought he played very well yesterday.
Late, which once again forced a field goal. I liked it did you like the one when Josh Allen was avoiding the rush and Anderson couldn't get him and then Jenkins got stiff-armed? Did that cause his rib injury, by the way? Because he's got a rib injury now.
I don't know, and I'm not speculating on that.
That's our pass rusher right there.
So.
Jenkins gets stiff-armed. Not too longer after he got stiff-armed, because again, these are guys. Because Jenkins won't be here next year. You can lock that. That's guaranteed.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that.
But guy who will be here is Basham. He had the huge sack, forced fumble, and Jets recovered the ball. Franklin Myers recovered the ball in that one. And then we had right after that the touchdown drive, which was a really nice drive. Matter of fact, Darnold had some good plays on that one, and then Perine had speed around the corner because if that's Frank Gore, he ain't making it. So it's Perine with speed around the corner, followed Becton and Griffin, who had good blocks, and believe it or not, the Jets led 10-0. And that wasn't going to last long.
Turn your TV sets off there, boys.
Pretty much. But actually, it was after it was 10-3, and the Jets start moving the ball down again. We're hoping, hey, maybe we could make it 13-3. And by the way, I was all for the slow pace because of the exact reason what happened. Because I did not want the Bills getting the ball back. I figured, that's all right, slow pace. You can pick it up once you cross the 40 of the Bills. And then, we got 3 timeouts. But then Darnold throws just a ridiculously bad interception. There was no reason to throw that. And after that, he was done. After that, play it again, Joey.
I fold like a cheap hooker who got hit in the stomach by a fat guy with sores on his face.
Bazinga!
You're going to have to give them royalties. You know that, right?
So anyway, that was that. There were some other players that didn't come through in the second half. Berrios had a key drop. Becton had the penalty. Of course, he has the penalty when Darnold actually threw the ball for a first down. That's going to happen. And then Fant had the holding. I thought Fant could have been I think he could have been responsible for 2 sacks. I know he was responsible for 1. And then Darnold threw the interception at the end after the holding, and we knew that was really, really over. So
Yep.
anyway. Oh, and speaking of quarterbacks, by the way, I'm going to give you a good comeback with the Hall of Famers early, because late we're gonna fast forward to late. So we did the first drive and the field goal and the 3 touchdowns. Then we're gonna go fast forward. And then I just watched the Jets lose and Darnold do nothing for a whole half. And then I flip on Baker Mayfield and Cleveland. Hey, there's a high draft pick leading his team from behind and down the field to score a touchdown. Hey, I wish I had that guy. So anyway, it's just
wait, hold on.
It's just so annoying.
I bring you back a couple weeks ago. There were a lot of people riding Baker Mayfield out of town in Cleveland also. Very early.
Again, I'm just giving you the point.
I know.
How
Look,
come, whether it's
great
young quarterbacks or old quarterbacks, we've got the only quarterback that can't come through. That's all.
Look, and they did it without OBJ, who missed pretty much the entire game and now has a torn ACL.
Yeah. Quickly, the one thing I did notice with Dowell, I don't know if you noticed this, but it did seem the one thing that I thought that they did a better job of was it seemed like they got to the line of scrimmage a lot earlier. It seemed like with about every time they got to the line of scrimmage, it seemed to be like 15 seconds left. So, if that was part of the reason, if that had to do with the changing of the play callers, that's good. I was all for the move by Gase to do that, because when you're in a situation, you're about to be fired, it's what you have to do. You have to say, okay, the play calling is nice and all that, but this guy knows how to call plays. I've got to watch everything, and I've got to figure out if there's anything else I could do to help this team win. So I think we're going to see Dowell call the plays, at least in the short term.
Probably. I mean, they have nothing to lose, right? I mean, they played better in the first half. Clearly, the second half wasn't optimal, but they weren't doing anything under Gase. So why not change it up and see if you can recapture the magic from the first 28 minutes of the first half yesterday.
Okay. Now, quickly, if the Jets, because I've already started looking, if the Jets are going to, and if they do fire Gase, do you have any coaches, like a wish list?
Told you the one I thought we'll get an interview is Eric Bieniemy. I know you're not a big fan of his, right? Beyond that, I haven't really started scoping out coaches.
Yeah, they're not really a lot. This is a bad time to be looking for head coaches in the NFL, or even college. You have a chance at Ryan Day at Ohio State. You have a chance at Lincoln Riley. Maybe he gets the Cowboy job. Now he's starting to lose at Oklahoma. He might start realizing, maybe this is a good time for me to go pro. I'd keep an eye on former Jet Jim Leonhard. He's the defensive coordinator with Wisconsin. Yep. And he's done a great job there. So Jim Leonhard is someone to keep an eye on. And a guy that I said to keep an eye on about 4 years ago, when I also said Kyle Shanahan and McVay. And I said, these are the 3 guys that my wish list of coaches to replace Bowles. The other one was PJ Fleck. And to me, PJ Fleck is Pete Carroll. And if the Jets were so bold to offer PJ Fleck the job, that's exactly I think what we'd be getting. We'd be getting a younger version of Pete Carroll.
Although I don't think the team's been particularly great around him lately for Fleck in terms of college. But I mean, I don't know how good the team has been around him this year.
No, I mean, they just started this year, but last year they had like their best year in Minnesota in a while.
I think Fleck could be an interesting option. Again, I don't know if they're going to go that young of a route, but again, getting a guy in who can look, you have to be careful in terms of guys growing into the role. Look, I think Fleck from an offensive perspective would be a breath of fresh air. It'd be interesting to see.
I think as a press conference and a rallying the troops perspective, he'd be a really good breath of fresh air.
If they go the Leonhard route, then I think that Greg Williams is out of here.
Oh, absolutely.
But if they go the Fleck route or somebody like that, I could see Williams remaining based upon who they bring in as the coach.
Possible.
Especially if it's a guy who's more offensive minded.
Yeah, and a guy that maybe doesn't have pro coaching experience.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
And keep an eye. I know Matt Campbell said what he said last year, but if he knew that Trevor Lawrence was going to be his quarterback, Matt Campbell might change his mind. I'd also keep an eye on Chris Kleiman, because Kleiman is doing a fantastic job already at Kansas State. He won a boatload of FCS championships. and this is a guy that should get some consideration. So anyway, so those are some of the guys that I looked at. But I mean, you could also in the NFL, in the pros, you could look at Saleh, the defensive coordinator with the Niners.
I would love Saleh. I mean, that's the other name I've been thinking of. And if you want a guy who's clearly, I will use the term emotional, there is definitely the guy that you want to get because he clearly puts his emotion on his sleeves.
There you go. Also, you've got the Rams. They have a couple of coordinators. Brandon Staley, the defensive coordinator, is a young kid. He's somebody probably too early, but keep an eye on him in a few years. Kevin O'Connell, who was a quarterback for the Jets for a couple of years, is the offensive coordinator now with the Rams, even though we know he's not really calling the plays, which, by the way, is also kind of a reason I'm not sold completely on Eric Bieniemy with Andy Reid there. Anyway, so those are some of the top names. And Matt Eberflus from the Colts. We've done all these players from the Colts. So
Eberflus, they haven't worked out. I think we've tapped the Colt pipeline, and I don't know how well that's gone for us. So I would be, not necessarily pushing that as my agenda for the next coach.
Okay, would you trade Crowder?
No.
If you did, what would you want?
Third.
Okay,
maybe
so if they gave you a second, you definitely take it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
but I do think, look, they need lots of help on the wide receiver. I don't think Perriman right now is going to be back next year. Crowder can do.
Why wouldn't Perriman be back? The only reason Perriman, I think, wouldn't be back is if he actually played really well and wanted his huge contract, and the Jets didn't want to give it to him.
I don't know if he's signed. He's signed for what, only this year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. I could see him coming back for another year.
It's possible. Maybe.
I mean, wouldn't that be better to have a guy like that as more of your number 2 and 3?
I'd rather have Crowder because I think Crowder's more of a safety.
Well, he's your slot guy, though.
Right.
So
exactly, and I think they need that.
But they need another outside guy. No question.
You know my view on this already. So,
what's that?
You know who I wanted to stay. You know who I think we made a mistake in not bringing back.
So
I agree.
And again, stop it.
Maybe
because he didn't want to be here. He's playing for his old coach. He's happy. And 2 players to keep an eye on. David Njoku wants to get traded from the Browns, so keep an eye on that. And William Jackson, the Bengals cornerback, was fantastic a couple of years ago. For some reason, things haven't worked out for him the last year or two. He's not been the same player, but maybe he needs a change of scenery, and we obviously can use some cornerback help.
We clearly can. Carlos Dunbar wants out also, but I don't know if he's a fit.
No, I could see Dunbar going to a team like Seattle, a team that needs some pass rushers. But yeah, no, that's not it. Dunlop wants and Atkins. They want to go to winners anyway. They're too old. But Jackson's still in the prime of his career, so I'd like to see. I don't mind what he's doing, getting draft picks, but I'd also like to see him make a deal like this. It would be nice if he took a player like a Jackson or an Njoku, and if you have to give up a pick, fine. You've already started to accumulate tons of picks, so why don't you give away a couple of them to see, especially a guy like Jackson? He could be a number 1 corner for us. So, all right. Anyway, that'll wrap it up. So next week, oof. We have to do the show next week?
I think in 22 point underdog probably.
It's down to 20.5.
I
don't know why anybody's putting money on the Jets, but they have. The line moved a couple of spots.
Kansas City was okay yesterday. They weren't great, even though they played in a snowstorm.
That's because they were looking ahead at the Jets.
Maybe they pull the brakes back a little bit after getting up by a lot. Maybe the Jets get some kind of backdoor cover.
Yeah, right.
So I don't see it happening. Maybe that's why. I other than that, I got nothing.
No. Well, look, it's all about Sam Darnold. That's it. If he can wake up and it just sometime, everything just goes away, all of the doubt. He throws an interception early, and I don't care. I'm still going to be okay. If all of that can go away, then one of these weeks we'll have a chance to win. But if it doesn't go away, then he has to play perfect football, or else, wait, one last time?
I fold like a cheap hooker who got hit in the stomach by a fat guy with sores on his face.
And that, my friend, is Jets FM on EOFN for this week. Hopefully, the last week we have to talk about the Jets losing again. No, that didn't work. We got the Chiefs next week. Patriots in 2 weeks, baby. Maybe we'll play Jarrett Stidham.
Could be, given the way Newton's look.
All right, Jan. We'll talk to you again next Monday.
Sounds good.